that he's not the sort of person we want with the USA's most important secrets. And so an anti-Oppenheimer feeling grew, which was encouraged by his opposition to developing the hydrogen bomb. Teller at Los Alamos had been working on the super, and it took a long time for there to be any breakthrough. It was the Ulam-Teller design of the so-called super that made a hydrogen bomb possible. Oppenheimer could see that it was theoretically possible, but his argument, he was asked, he was asked to head a committee that would come to with a policy recommendation: should we, the United States of America, have an accelerated program to produce a hydrogen bomb? And Oppenheimer's advice was no. And his reason for that was, he said, look, you're talking about a device many times more powerful than the device that destroyed Hiroshima. No one, he said, could conceivably, no rational, no sane person could conceivably use such a device. And given that, why should we develop it? That was his argument, and it was regarded increasingly by the heads of military in the United States, in the corridors of power, as it were, in Washington, D.C., it was regarded as a specious argument. The argument they found more compelling was, if the Soviet Union is developing this bomb, we want it too. And so Oppenheimer became suspect. And as you all know, eventually that led to the security hearings in 1954, at which he was stripped of his security clearance. One of the most amazing things of the Cold War. The man who had led the project to develop the atomic bomb now no longer had access to the material that he himself had produced. Moreover, overnight almost, he was switched from the guy on the cover of Life magazine and Time magazine, the guy that everybody knew, admired and respected, into somebody who was in disgrace. Possibly a spy, at the very least, unreliable. But very quickly that changed, and it changed largely because of Ed Murrow, who made this TV documentary in which he interviewed Oppenheimer, and the public could then see for themselves that Oppenheimer was very charismatic and was very good at explaining things, and it presented this new friendly face. And so the last few years of his life, he caught cancer in the early 60s. He died early in 1967, but his last years were spent giving popular lectures, sometimes on politics, current affairs, issues to do with atomic energy, and sometimes on physics. And these lectures were hugely popular. He wouldn't get an audience of 100 people, he'd get an audience sometimes of 2,500 people. But cancer was catching up with him. He was a very heavy smoker. He was quite a heavy drinker too, actually. Surpassed in that respect by his wife, Kitty. But he himself was a very heavy smoker, and you can... The workload at Los Alamos, you can see had a physical effect on him. When you see Oppenheimer, he looks skeletal. He's so underweight. So underweight that when he contracted cancer, the emaciated look that cancer victims have, he had already, so it didn't actually change that much, but he did look increasingly frail and ill. He was in his late 50s when he got cancer. He was 62 when he died. He died before his 63rd birthday, and one of his last utterances was to a colleague at Princeton, to whom he said, "Don't smoke." And I'll leave it at that. Yes, so sorry to go on. Yeah.
I understand that his clearance was supposed to have expired.
I know. Yes.
Days
Yes. Yes.
So was it just vengeance by Strauss, do you think? Or vindictive?
Strauss was a vengeful man. By the way, you know, Strauss insisted that his surname be pronounced Straws for a reason that nobody quite understood. His name was Strauss, but he insisted that everyone called him Straws. And Oppenheimer had this tendency which alienated a lot of people. It's as if he had a sort of smart-ass version of Tourette's